Hey friends and neighbors, it is Josh coming to you with a Tarot Snapshot for Monday, October 16th. So we're halfway through the month of October. And October, even into November and December, these last 3 months of the year are really a focus for me on what I call vitamin joy. You might have heard me talk about vitamin joy before, but I am such a big believer in it. And before I jump into this Tarot Snapshot, I want to talk about why I believe Halloween and the month of October has this trickster element to it. So traditionally, October would be the month that, our ancestors are harvesting their livestock. And this is in the northern hemisphere of the month where everything is dying off. So we have this element of death and dying and even hibernation, if you will, getting ready for the long winter ahead. I'm a big believer in vitamin joy and the way that we have to seek out joy, fun, escape in the face of the turmoil and drama and trauma and chaos that we're all inevitably going to find in our life. So that's why I believe Halloween is such a wonderful time of celebrating ancestors and spirits and all the spooky stuff in this world, but also that time of trick-or-treating and masks and games and costumes and fun and that element really of that trickster. With that being said, the Tarot Snapshot this week is coming to you with I'm getting the box here, the Universal Monsters Tarot Deck and Guidebook. I'm a little bit different than most psychics and mediums where I don't talk about, hearing spirits or having spirits visit me or communicating with spirits as a child. It seems like a lot of psychics talk about that. They've been doing it since they were a child. When I was a kid, I just loved the spooky stuff. I was a kid of the 80s and 90s, and I couldn't get enough of the vampires and the werewolves, ghosts, zombies. And I was notoriously the kid at like 7 or 8 that was reading Stephen King novels. Now, this shirt that I'm wearing, Stephen King Rules, comes from one of my favorite movies from the 80s called The Monster Squad. And I was such a fan of the Universal Monsters. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Mummy, all of that. The Bride of Frankenstein, we can't forget her either. Now, this Universal Monsters, a tarot deck, I'm going to use it, and I'm not really that familiar with it. I've used it a few times. It's not one of the main decks that I use, but I thought it would be really appropriate for the Tarot Snapshot today. Now, the Tarot Snapshot is this tarot spread that I do, and anybody that uses tarot cards, oracle cards, runes can pretty much do this 3-card spread. This reading is meant for anybody that stumbles upon this video. So if you're a friend or neighbor of mine and you've seen me do this before, well, it's meant for you. But if you're just somebody who's stumbling upon me, it is also meant for you. Anybody that watches this, well, this is meant for you. So I'm shuffling 5 times here, and the first card that I'm going to pull out of the deck represents us all, even myself. The second card is the card that vexes and perplexes. The third card is what heals and reveals. I can't wait to see what the cards have to say. Now, I don't think that I'm going to lean into the guidebook, but I know that there are a bunch of characters on these 78 cards that I'm not familiar with. So I might want to find out who they are just to help us out here along the way. However, I'm going to know the meaning of all the cards. So this week, the card that represents us is the King of Crypts. Now, the King of Crypts, the King of... Let's see. I do actually have to look this up. This is great. So I'm going to go to the beginning here and see what the crypts represent. I imagine that they might represent the earth element. Okay. Crypts are actually cups. So this is the King of Cups. Okay. So that's a weird correlation. But the King of Cups, the King of Crypts. This is a card that essentially speaks to me of Gomez Addams. So the King of Crypts is the King of Cups. That represents to me Gomez Addams. Gomez Addams, if you're familiar with the Addams family, he was that man who was very much all about love. He knew that love was the greatest reason why we're here. He was sensible. He took care of business. He took care of his family. And he actually had the crypt. I love that, in the basement of the house where he had all the gold and what have you. So this is Arthur Holmwood. Okay. I'm not really sure where he's from. Might be from Dracula, if you can. But just as the King of Crypts represents a steadfastness and reliability, Arthur Holmwood understands the balance between head and heart. He can jump into the fray to fend off the forces of evil, especially if the intended victim is his fiancée. Here, Arthur is suggesting that you follow suit to protect those you hold dear. He calls you to remain emotionally mature, even when the stakes are high. Now, that's an interesting card because that is, what Gomez is to me. In the show, in the movies, whenever you'd see him have conflict, he would always be fighting for his family. That's an interesting element because I really do believe I would be, I would much rather have somebody on my side that was fighting for something that they love instead of having somebody on my side that was fighting for something that they hated. Hate makes us stupid. Fear does as well. Love is the greatest source of strength and wisdom that we have access to, because when we love something, when we love someone, when we fight for someone that we love, when we struggle for somebody that we love, we find the greatest source of strength that we have access to. When we have to solve a problem for somebody we love, we find the greatest source of wisdom that we have access to. So that's the King of Cups. That is all of us, whether you're male, female, in between, otherwise, or undecided. That is us. That is this moment where we have to remember how important it is to lean into that element of love, to find the greatest strength and wisdom that we have access to. Hatred, not going to give us that. Hatred's going to make us stupid. So, with that being said, what vexes and perplexes us, and I might have to reference the guidebook again, just to have this fun. So this is the Two of Cups. What vexes and perplexes us, the Two of Cups. So this is that romance element. I do see the Two of Cups, or the Two of Cups in this way, as that really just that emblem of partnership, coming together in balance and equanimity. It's really important that we remember in this world not to expect ourselves out of others. And I think a lot of us enter into relationships, whether they're platonic, romantic, professional, I'm going to give everything that I have and I want that back. I expect that back from people. And I don't think it's fair for us, especially, to expect ourselves and our level of commitment and really anything, whether you want to, value commitment or effort or anything like that. We're going to bring different parts of ourselves to relationships. And we can't set ourselves up to fail or set ourselves up for disappointment when we expect ourselves out of other people. My husband and I are a great example. And I was just thinking about this, today. We go about taking care of the house. We go about taking care of each other in a very different way. And it would be unfair to either one of us to expect that out of the other one. Now, in regards to that, the third card is what heals and reveals. So let's lean into that. The third card is, the 10 of Cups. So we have 3 Cups cards, 3 Cups cards. This is the 10 of Cups. This is sort of that happily ever after. And I am not a big fan of the idea of happily ever after, because I think that's a trope. It's a cliche that we kind of get driven into our head. It has to do with, the American dream. You work hard, you struggle hard, and, success will rain down upon you. And we see that in all sorts of narrative structures, whether it's movies, fairy tales, books that we read where the hero has to struggle and has to kind of prove their worth and fill their quota of suffering for the universe. I always use the Cinderella as an example that, she suffered under the evil stepmother. She had to scrub floors. And then when she kind of had suffered enough, I'm going to put air quotes around enough, suffered enough, the universe responded and gave her happily ever after with the fairy godmother and the Prince Charming and all of that. I much prefer the narrative structure of happily for now. We are all in cycles, and we're going to have good days, we're going to have bad days, but we can't lean into that idea of happily ever after because our life is fluid, our life is organic. We're going to always be interacting with elements and variables in our equation that are going to challenge us health-wise, professionally, personally, emotionally, mentally, all of it. We're going to interact with things that challenge us. So remember, your happily ever after may happen, but you're going to have stuff that happens in regards to that. You're always going to be faced with challenges. And when you're faced with challenges, the greatest source of strength and wisdom that you have access to is your love. Remember to give yourself that as much as you give that to everybody else. This is how we make it through the world, using our mind and our heart in conjunction so we don't set ourselves up to fail. We don't get caught up in these fairy tale ideas of happily ever after, when it's really just happily for now. Thank you, and that's why I have this black and white video, because it is Universal Monster time. It's Halloween time. Have a great October. Have a wonderful Halloween. We'll see you next week.